New car Ford Edge Titanium Hay.
Ford Edge Titanium A.
Engine to 0, up to DOHC 16 valves, 6-speed automatic transmission, 4-wheel drive, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to change the engine. The engine K to GE. The funny thing is that I have this engine.
Самый прикол в том, что у меня есть этот двигатель.
I am currently repairing this engine. I will tell you about it a little later.
О нем расскажу немного попозже.
This is an engine from another car. I just bought it. I'm trying to restore it. It will be a little bit in another video. Now we have ongoing repairs, so it's a little noisy behind the scenes. What else is interesting about this car? The car came from British Columbia, and what is most interesting, if we talk about the previous car, about that motor, then there was the following situation. There was an oil filter twisted incorrectly. For some reason, the filter gasket was out. All the oil leaked out, and as a result, the engine jammed, but jammed quickly. And in most cases, when the engine oil starvation suffers a lot of elements, camshafts, crankshafts, and everything else on that engine. The connecting rod jammed, that is, the liner. The liners were turned, and it jammed on the connecting rod inserts. Everything else seems to be in order. Here, well, I'll tell you more about that engine in other videos. As for this engine, we are looking. I saw that his pallet was wet, covered in oil. I decided to look at the solder filter too, maybe a gasket too. I see it's inconvenient from here, but in general he doesn't have an oil filter. Everything is in oil, there is no oil filter. It's like an oil filter has been unscrewed. But I don't believe in such coincidences. In general, I have the impression that in British Columbia, someone unscrews all the oil filters, drains the oil, and starts the engine. It's like it kills the engines, and then, I don't know, it returns these cars by insurance, returns the money, and that's it. The fool knows him. Well, we will disassemble, we will shoot a little bit, I will show and tell. Removing the engine from this car is a little more difficult. Disconnecting from the back, he has practically no place there. Disconnect the rear gearbox, that is, it will all be more difficult. And what else about this engine, about turning off the engine? So it turns out there is wiring to the engine, and it turns off with this connector. That is, I threw off this connector, that's it. All the wiring of the engine, which goes from the back, from the front, which would be very difficult to disconnect if there were no this connector, it remains on the motor. This is, in principle, convenient, I like it. On some machines, on old machines, when you disconnect these connectors, the difficulty arises in the fact that sometimes the connectors are slightly different from this one, and it is very problematic to remove them. These plastic things just stay in your hands, and then you can't get this connector out of there. There should be no problems with this here. In general, now I will pump gas out of the air conditioning system here on this car, since the car is new gas is used. Gas is very expensive. It turns out that this is the gas cylinder that is on the device. Only one cylinder fully refilled costs something on the order of $5,000. And there is such a situation. The gas itself is expensive, some dealer spikes, or I was wrong. Not a dealer spike, namely shops. Shops are our 100. The service station is called a shop. So, some shops, in order to save money to the client, they simply pour the liquid of the old beam. It is cheaper, and there is a problem. The problem is related to the fact that if now, for example, there is an old liquid in the system, and I start pumping, the device is very smart. It releases all the gas into the outside. That is immediately minus $4,000. That is why, in principle, another person uses this device, he is responsible for it, and is responsible for it if something goes wrong. The principle of operation is now in the gas system. That is, you need to get it from there to save the recalls.
Сохранить. Recover.
Make sure everything is connected and the valves are open.
И клапаны открыты.
Opening it. The valve opens clockwise, something behind. Yes, and the valve is the second valve. All the valves are open. We start.
Второй клапан. Все. Клапаны открыты. Начинаем.
And it shows how much it took from the gas system.
Забрала из системы газа.
At first, these indicators jump there, but as a result, it can't be pumped out. But the data on the air conditioning system is usually indicated on the front panel. Here it turns out gas are 123YF and it goes to zero. It turns out 595 kilograms or 131 pounds.
1,31 lbs.
That is, it should pump out about 0.005 kilograms. This procedure is completed. 535 grams. 535 grams. Such a nasty sound when it's all over.
535 грамм. Такой противный звук, когда все закончено.
Well, that's it. The system turns out to be empty. You can turn off the radiators of the air conditioning system. The disassembly continues. During this time, I unscrewed the headlights, took off the protection, threw off the wheels. Here we are slowly sorting out, by the way, about this new gas.
Кстати, по поводу этого нового газа.
Why was this new gas invented? In order to protect nature, so as not to destroy the ozone layer, because the first type of gas is old, which is now used in all air conditioners, I mean at home. When it is released into the atmosphere, it turns out to destroy the ozone layer. But what is the point? They fought it. As a result, gas has become much more expensive, and if there is a situation like this, some shops, I mean a situation when a car is driven, and you don't know what kind of gas is in the middle. Yes, there are different adapters, that is, in principle, it is impossible to connect that system to this system. But some shops, in order to, well, I repeat, that is, in order to save money, they save the customer money. They just make adapters and pour old gas into this new system. And so, we model the situation. Some shops, in order not to risk the gas that is in this car, that is, not to let it out. If suddenly it collides with old gas when pumping gas, they just let this gas out from the old car, and then just fill it up. And for the gas that is needed, and here it all came to the fact that nature was protected by some kind of mutual guarantee. Well, 2 hours of work, and the muzzle is disassembled.
защитили природу. Какая-то круговая порука. Ну что, 2 часа работы, и морда разобрана.
We'll get the rest.
Остальное.
25 hours are given for this work. If we talk about the previous Mitsubishi, it was also given about 25 hours. I don't remember exactly, but in any case, I did the work in 15 hours.
В любом случае, работу я сделал за 15 часов.
15 hours is to get the old engine and put a new one. Here. While I was disassembling this engine, well, I was not disassembling the engine. It turns out that this car was dragged a new engine. A new DOHC engine.
Новый бэушный двигатель.
Here
Вот
he
он
stands.
стоит.
So you look from the side when they look under the hood, it seems small, but here it's just
Он
huge.
кажется маленьким, а здесь он просто огромный.
Just
Просто
huge.
огромный.
Well, it's clear here that the mixture is not removed. The rear turbo is not removed. The turbo is coming from behind.
Не снята
The
задняя
distributor
турбо.
is coming from behind. That is, the engine was removed as quickly as possible. It even
Здесь
tore off
снимали
the
двигатель
hoses.
Максимально быстро, он даже шланги оторвал.
Cut off
Отрезаны
simply.
Просто.
Just
Просто
cut it off
отрезали
and that's
и
it.
всё.
Why? Why
Зачем
invent
что
something?
выдумывать?
Well, from this engine, or rather, to transfer everything from that engine, including the wiring, to this engine. It will take some time. I still thought that the filter was like this. I would find it under protection.
Я вот еще
Well,
думал,
here
что
it
фильтр
lies.
таки я его найду под защитой. Ну да, вот он лежит.
Handsome.
Красавец.
Damn, well, I have no idea, but how so? Here I see it even turns out that the paint is coming from the factory as a lot. I do not know.
Заводопроизводитель идет краска как локтайт, я не знаю.
Thread
фиксатор
retainer.
резьбы.
How
Как
could
она
she,
могла-
or rather, how could
Как
this
мог
filter
этот
jump
фильтр
out?
Выпрыгнуть.
Well,
Не
I
верю
don't
я в
believe it.
это.
He
Он сам
unscrewed himself.
открутился.
Usually,
Обычно, когда
when you
ты
tighten the
закручиваешь
filter,
фильтр,
there is not even
там
an
не
effort
нужно
needed
даже
to keep it.
усилий, чтобы он держался.
Then
Он
it's
потом
just a
просто
rubber seal that gets
резиновое
oil on it.
уплотнение, на которое попадает масло.
It
Оно
just
просто
sticks.
прикипает.
Well,
Ну вот
here's
как
how
это
to explain it.
объяснить?
The
Резьба,
thread seems to be normal.
вроде бы нормальная.
What
Что за
kind of
фильтр?
filter? But the
Но
filter
фильтр
is
уже
no
не
longer the
оригинальный,
original, of course.
естественно.
The Alcodelca.
Delca.
That is, it is either the dealer
Это
changed the
или
filter,
дилер
so I do not know who.
Менял так фильтр. Или я не знаю кто.
How
Как
could I
можно
not
было не
finish
докрутить
screwing up the filter?
Фильтр.
Well, is that so? So, well, we continue to disassemble this engine. The situation is as follows. The engine really doesn't rotate.
Действительно не вращается.
He's
Он
just
просто
jammed.
заклинил.
Just
Просто
jammed.
заклинил. Ну,
Well,
масляная
oil
гордость.
starvation.
То есть мне приходится-
That is,
придется
I will
снимать
have to
поддон,
remove the pallet and
и
release the crankshaft
освобождать
or connecting rods. I don't
коленвал
know.
или
We'll see
что-то,
what's
ну, не
there.
знаю, там посмотрим, что
By
там.
the way,
Кстати,
this
у
motor
этого
also
мотора
has
тоже
balancers,
есть
an
балансир,
oil
масляный
pump,
насос,
as well as on the
как и на
Mitsubishi
моторе
motor.
Mitsubishi. А еще
And
одна
another
особенность
feature of this motor
данного
is that
мотора,
if you
что
unscrew
если
this
ты
nut
открутишь вот
and
эту
expect
гаечку
that this pulley goes on the
и
key,
будешь
then you
рассчитывать,
are
что
very
этот
wrong.
шкив идет на шпонке, то ты очень ошибаешься.
Because it's a sheaf without a key. As soon as you unscrewed that, you knocked the ignition off between the crankshaft and the camshaft. And another joke is that in order to expose the crankshaft, to the upper dead center, you need to use this bolt here.
Можно использовать вот этот вот болтик.
I don't know, is it visible?
Не знаю,
Is it
видно
not
его,
visible?
не видно.
Yes, this
Вот
bolt.
этот болтик.
And
И
this
этот
bolt is
болтик
unscrewed,
выкручивается,
and a
туда
special tool is
вкручивается
screwed
специальный
into it for a
инструмент
certain
на
length.
определенную-
Well,
ну,
a special
специальный
tool,
инструмент,
a
специальный
special
болтик,
bolt that
который
goes
на
there to a certain
определенную
depth.
глубину туда заходит
When you
Когда ты
rotate
вращаешь
the
коленвал
crankshaft
по
clockwise,
часовой
it just
стрелке,
rests against this
он просто
bolt.
упирается в этот болт.
And
И
it turns
получается,
out that the
двигатель
engine
стоит
is at
в
the
верхней
top dead
мертвой
center.
точке. Но
But the joke is that
прикол
in
в том,
order
что,
to unscrew
чтобы
this bolt,
открутить
you
этот
need to
болтик,
knock out
тебе
the
нужно
half
выбить
axis.
полуось,
You
тебе
need to
нужно
take
снять
this one
эту,
off. This is the mount that holds the rear distributor.
заднюю.
And
И
in
ещё,
addition to everything else,
в
this is the
дополнение к
crankshaft
всему,
position
вот этот вот
sensor.
датчик положения коленвала, после
After
того,
you
как
put the
ты
bolt here,
поставил
put the
здесь
crankshaft in the upper dead
выставил
center.
коленвал в
Then this
верхнюю
sensor is
мертвую
also
точку,
exposed with a
то
special
этот
key.
датчик тоже, он выставляется специальным ключом.
That
То есть
is,
он
it is
зажимается
clamped with a special
специальный
key
ключ,
that sets the
который
position of the
выставляет
crankshaft
положение
sensor.
датчика коленвала.
Here
Вот
is such
такая
a
вот
system.
система.
No,
Нет
they
бы
would have
шпонку
put a key,
поставили, да и
and that's
все
all the
дела.
business. As
На
on
всех
all
стандартных
standard normal
нормальных
engines.
двигателях.
And
А
here,
здесь,
well,
ну,
just if you
просто,
unknowingly unscrew it,
если
that's
по
it,
незнанию
the
это
ignition is
открутить,
knocked down.
Все, зажигание сбито.
Well,
Ну что ж,
everything is
всё
as
как
usual.
всегда.
It turns
Получается,
out
для
that
того,
in
чтобы
order to
открутить
unscrew the torque converter,
трансформатор,
in order to
чтобы
disconnect the
отсоединить,
motor from the box, I need to
мотор
turn
от
the
коробки,
crankshaft.
мне необходимо проворачивать коленвал.
But
Но
the
коленвал не
crankshaft does not
проворачивается.
turn. We look
Смотрим
further.
дальше.
So I open the
Открываю,
pallet,
значит, я поддон,
remove the balancers with the oil pump.
снимаю балансиры с маслонасосом.
Well,
Вы
you can
видите уже
already see the
вкладыши
inserts
от
from the
шатуна.
connecting rod lying around.
Валяются, вот
Here they
они.
are. One
Один
connecting
шатун
rod was just jammed.
Просто был заклинен.
I turned the
Вкладыша
inserts.
провернула. Ладно,
Okay, I let him go.
я его отпустил.
That
То
is,
есть
we
смотрим
look
на
at the
вкладыши.
inserts. The color of the
Цвет
liner,
вкладыш,
or
нет,
rather,
цвет
the color
шатунов
of the connecting rods.
нормальный,
Normal,
вроде бы
kind of normal,
нормальный,
kind of normal.
вроде бы нормальный.
And
И
there it
там
turns out to be such a
получается
black color.
такой вот черный цвет.
Well,
это
this
означает,
means
что
that there
масла
was
не
no
было,
oil, and there was
был перегрев.
overheating. Just like to show it
Также,
like that,
как бы так показать,
the piston also has a
тоже
slightly different
имеет
color.
немножко другой цвет,
It's more so dark.
более такой темный.
Well,
Ну,
it doesn't
неважно.
matter. In
В
any
любом
case,
случае,
these connecting rods
эти
are dangling,
шатуны
they do not hold.
болтаются, они
This
не
connecting
держат,
rod
этот
is
шатун
loose, it
болтается,
doesn't
не
hold.
держит, этот
This
шатун
connecting rod
болтается,
is
не
loose,
держит.
it doesn't hold.
Но
But the engine still
двигатель
did not want to turn.
всё ещё
That
не
is, in
хотел
addition, it is
проворачиваться.
still clamped in the connecting
есть-
rod in the root liners.
Дополнительно он еще зажат в шатуна, во вкладышах коренных.
Therefore,
Поэтому пришлось
I had to
открутить
unscrew the root liners,
коренные
and
вкладыши,
only then I somehow
и
turned
только
this
тогда
engine
я
around.
кое-как провернул этот двигатель.
Now
Сейчас
I have
уже
already
я
unscrewed
открутил
all the
все гайки.
nuts. Here it
Здесь
is the
идут
nuts
именно
that go,
гаечки.
and everything can be further
И всё,
disassembled,
можно
removed.
дальше разбирать его, снимать.
What
Что
else?
еще?
What
Что же
happened to the oil
случилось
filter?
С масляным фильтром.
At
Я
first, I
сначала
thought it was a
подумал,
white
что
strip of an
это
oil filter.
полосочка
It was some kind of
белая
lactite,
масляного фильтра.
or
Это
something
какой-то
applied to fix the
лактайт или
thread.
что-то нанесено для фиксации резьбы.
But after
Но,
looking closely,
присмотревшись,
I
я
realized
понял,
that this is
что
a
это
thread from the
резьба
filter
самого
itself.
фильтра. То
That
есть
is, we tighten the filter.
закручиваем фильтр.
The filter
Фильтр
begins
начинает
to twist
закручиваться
already far away.
уже далеко.
Twist,
Закручиваем,
twist,
закручиваем,
twist.
закручиваем.
It seems
Вроде
to
бы
be tightened,
затянули, да?
right? That's
Вот
tightened.
затянули.
Oop, and he jumped
И он
off.
соскочил. То
That
есть
is, the thread
резьба
on
на
the filter
самом
itself
фильтре
just fell into disrepair,
просто
although it
пришла
looks
в
more
негодность,
or
хотя
less
она
normal.
выглядит более-менее
But it is still
нормально,
broken technologically something.
но она сорвана. Все-таки технологически что-то
Something's
не
wrong.
так.
Well, it's clear where it was
Понятно, где
done.
сделано.
Made in
Made
China, and as I was told by
Как мне
Haysi Dulk,
сказали,
these filters are put by dealers.
AC DLK это ставят данные фильтры дилеры.
That's it. Because of one small filter, these are the
Из-за одного
problems.
маленького фильтра такие вот проблемы.
The engine has fallen into disrepair.